Welcome back to the Talking Hedge. I'm Josh Kincaid, and this is your Cannabis Business Podcast. Today, we're going to dive into the 5 best states to start a new cannabis business. On the line with us is Dan Kemmis, our CBD correspondent with Good CBD Products. So according to Marijuana Venture, there's 5 states that immediately come to mind as the best place to start a cannabis business. They've broken down some of the legalities to consider from each of the state if you're looking to start a cannabis business, starting with Massachusetts. So Massachusetts has recently approved by the voters a measure legalizing recreational use of cannabis, including a cannabis lounge. And although there isn't literature necessarily on what that's going to look like, there are efforts to kind of push that forward. And so they've also established a social equity program. They're trying to get 2 financial institutions on board. So it looks like, at least on paper, they're moving forward.
You're going to have to go to Boston, brother, and open up a chronic lounge.
I think there's a huge opportunity for Massachusetts because if you look at the college scene in Boston, there are 5 universities around there: Boston College, MIT, and several others. But opportunities with that market for sure, as it's youthful, it's energetic. There's a lot of new graduates to kind of bring ideas and creativity and new PR and so on.
Here's the thing. The truth of the matter is, while you don't want to paint with a broad brush, smart people burn cannabis. Smart people enjoy cannabis. So it makes sense.
So some of the numbers for Massachusetts, as of June 17th, state licensed retailers sold more than $147 million of cannabis in 2019. According to the state's Cannabis Control Commission. It's not bad. Oh, I just held a town hall for cannabis lounges in our state's capital yesterday, and we spoke a little bit about the social equity program. So it's good to see that Massachusetts is on board with that. I actually received a call from the gentleman who's trying to put that together. And so I was able to kind of get involved, or at least find out how they're doing it so that we can try and implement that. There's been a lot of affected individuals and communities by the war on drugs. And so it just makes sense to have that social equity program as an avenue for either grants or waivers on fees and costs for licenses and so forth. There's also Florida, which is behind in terms of welcoming the cannabis industry, but it's the nation's 3rd most populous state. So Marijuana Venture magazine goes on to say that the potential there is huge. One of the bills that was initially tried to go through Florida required 30 years experience and $20 million in capital. So it seemed like they were really going after big ag and commercial agriculture. But some of this medical right now is getting to be a little bit more balanced. So Florida has a total of 22 operators, making Florida attractive to investors. There's not a lot of them. We have 1,400, but there's 800 active. And so if you look at the worst case scenario in Oregon with 6.5 years excess supply, which is controversial because apparently some of that is garbage and they can't sell it. That's a podcast for another day. Florida has made it so that there's a limited amount of producers, making it only 22. And so obviously that's going to attract a lot of investment.
Well, yeah, we deal on the West Coast where there's all these, there's so many marginalized operators because you could make a case for saying there's too many operators. At the same time, you look at Florida, I don't know, brother. The way they've set their rules up, it's one of those things where I'm very much looking forward to getting east to go touch some of these operations because I can't even, I don't really know. I got to go see.
It's a felony to have THC in Florida, so I'm a little bit worried about the conservative nature, and in fact, they're not CBD friendly. So apparently law enforcement agencies have no way to tell the difference between hemp and CBD, whether it's written on a manifest or otherwise, and so they're just taking a precautionary approach and just arresting everybody, maybe. It actually says that some people are still being arrested for possession of CBD. So maybe some people might want to wait on going into Florida. It's an excellent gateway to the Caribbean and Puerto Rico for sure. I think eventually that's going to be a huge opportunity with Jacksonville being the main port for Puerto Rico. But time will tell. We've seen Colorado actually be a legal state now for what, like 5 years, and it's still considered one of the leaders in the cannabis industry, but it's less attractive to cannabis entrepreneurs as they've seen other states adopt medical and recreational laws. So on-site consumption, however, has spurred some new investment. We're seeing that cannabis cafes or marijuana lounges are the second largest investment vehicle behind multi-state operators. Um, uh, and actually behind data. So they're the third largest investment vehicle out there. And this is kind of new. Massachusetts included that in their bill. Colorado now has some consumption bills written in place. So might help spur some new investment down there.
Wait a minute. To be clear, are you saying that the Marijuana Ventures article says Colorado's a good place to go?
Yes, they are saying that
Neat.
Colorado was
Okay,
one of the top 5 places to go.
Neat. I'm going to be there all of September doing the whole CBD market scouting thing.
Mm-hmm.
How exciting. I'll go touch Colorado and let's see if we can wedge our way into some of those on-site consumption spaces.
And also the investment is coming into delivery options too, as that kind of comes on board. But social use is going to be a huge thing. It's a real estate investment play or a REIT. And then California, obviously being, I think, the 5th largest GDP in the world. So they've had a long history with cannabis legalization. So they finally legalized adult use sales. And so it's going to be a huge tourist attraction as it already is. And so there's some issues, however, according to the California State Association of Counties, 60% of the counties in California have a current ban on dispensaries, and 31 counties have banned commercial cultivation as well.
October is California. One of the things that's very interesting about Cali, roughly 10% of the U.S. population hangs out there, right? It is like its own country. And the outcome is, again, it would make sense. If you've got some kind of good idea and you want to go see if it can really, it can run, go to Cali.
Yeah, if Sacramento can get their banking options legitimate, then that can that'll allow the $67 billion estimate to happen a lot faster than they anticipate. And then Nevada is another state that we've seen very similar to how they laid out Florida only having 22 licenses. Nevada has a very small amount of licenses as well and has been very attractive. It's also held the highest price because of that. And so just like their casinos, it seems like there's some advantages of having a license down there and who you know. And again, I've seen a lot of licenses go for several $1 million, whereas in Washington, you have to give it away with the hopes of getting 6% royalties. So it's a tough market. Obviously, you want to go to a place that's going to make money. Washington State is not on this list. Nevada is.
One of the things I love about Vegas is all that tourist traffic, right? And that tourist traffic creates some very interesting opportunities from a cannabis product, CBD product perspective. At the same time, this is the thing that's been very interesting that we've seen on the ground, and you cover it here in this cast, is that each one of these states, their rules, the difference in their rules is dramatic. And in turn, understanding not just the state itself, but also local expertise that is ridiculously well grounded, right? Because you don't just learn this stuff in a day. You don't just read the rules and be like, oh, okay, I understand how they're different. You got to go touch it. You got to be in it to see how it's different. And boy, it is different state to state to state.
Yeah, we saw in May that they had a bill that established more social use venues, but that got delayed 2 years. The reason it was delayed is because they wanted a lot in that bill, including alcohol. And so obviously when you have competing interests, things can go awry. And so it was kicked to the curb for probably the next 2 years. Unfortunately, a lot of investors were kind of hoping to get in on that social use or the marijuana lounge option. And being the chair of the committee in Washington State for the Cannabis Alliance to implement its own version of marijuana lounges, we held our town hall meeting yesterday in Olympia, the state's capital, where we reviewed the Illinois state bill. And we had some guests, including a representative of the House. Their aide was there for the entire 2 hours. And we got to talk about social use, medical access, as well as the impact on small businesses and impaired driving. Beyond Illinois, we've covered Alaska and New Jersey, Colorado, West Hollywood, California, Las Vegas. We're going to try to cover Massachusetts. I don't think there's any literature out there, but it's definitely a huge investment drive. There's a lot of people who want to see this happen. I've said that it's kind of a window into the soul of the community where we can get together and normalize it, professionalize it. Just like a bar, you're not going to have a lot of issues. And in fact, I went to a bar yesterday. It's a private club in Olympia. It's called Frankie's, and they serve alcohol and you can smoke cannabis inside. They kind of have a filtration system. It's very smoky though. But it was nice to be able to go to a place and consume. I just wish that there were more options.
Yeah, I would liken it more to a pub than a bar. Just my own language, I guess. If you think about the neighborhood pub that's been on the corner for quite some time, I'm one of my personal hopes is to be in a place where I'm not there on, the day they start. Yeah, that's awesome. I want to be there 5 years later when the community's been built, right? And as an older guy, I wonder, because again, social use to me just seems like a truly a natural fit to where we're at. And here in Washington, it feels like we're so many miles away, Croc.
And we're making headway, though. I mean, I think there's a lot of people who are interested in it. It's beyond just tourism and revenue potential. I mean, it's civil liberties, right? It's being able to have a place where people have landlords or they're in an adult care facility that's federally subsidized or whatever the case is. They want to have a place to go and consume in a safe place. So safe access should be a focal point. And I think we're making a lot of headway with the Cannabis Alliance since March that we've been dissecting these 8 different state bills. We made a lot of headway, and I think with these town halls, we're going to be all over the state. So we'll be in Marysville, which is North Washington, in 2 weeks, then Central Washington 2 weeks after that, Spokane, which is the second largest community in the state, 2 weeks after that, then back into Seattle, hopefully hosting it at the World Trade Center with a couple hundred people and kicking off the success that will follow. So with that, we're going to roll this one up. I'm Josh Kincaid. This is the Talking Hedge. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, or don't, and I'm out.